The Truther Girls.
Hi everyone. The UK is having an acid attack epidemic. 1,500 acid attacks have been recorded in London since 2011. I mean, the numbers are really going up. Number of UK attacks involving acid and other corrosive substances soars and has tripled in 6 years in England, official records show. Okay, a few things you need to know. In most of the world, most of the victims of acid attacks are women. However, in the UK, for some reason, it's the other way around. Most of them are men. Experts are saying that these attacks on men could be related to gang violence. When people are charged with acid attack, it's acid or other corrosive substance or noxious substance. It can be, in some places, not only actually sulfuric acid. It could also be bleach. It could be hot water. It could be hot drinks, boiling water. It could be burned with a cigarette. It could be, in one case, a hot plate. So some of the statistics reflect attacks with various things that burn you, not only acid. First of all, when I looked at these articles, the one thing I noticed right away was that the whole comment section was full of comments about how this is because of the Muslims. Let's be honest, that's what people are saying. You know, I don't like to be prejudiced. I didn't want to just jump to a conclusion. So I actually spent, I don't know, 24 hours, like literally 24 hours, researching this to find out, is there really a connection with Islam? Is this because of the Muslims? And, you know, Pam Geller was saying, referring to one of these acid attacks, it was Muslims who did it. It was the one in Barking, Dagenham. She had said it was Muslims, and this has been scrubbed from the media. Well, if you look into it and you try to find, well, who's doing these acid attacks? No one is listing the names, even when it's adults, although in many cases it's children, teens. So then they won't give the name because it's a minor, but even when it's adult, they won't say who it is, because if it's like Omar, such and such, or Muhammad, whatever, we're all going to know what that means. And Pam Geller is saying, well, they scrubbed it. And I didn't want to just take it on face value because she didn't give any reference that could really prove that. So here on the Mirror, they have a list of all the towns where there have been acid attacks. And what I did is I went and cross-referenced that with the towns that have the largest Muslim populations. And in fact, I found out through very thorough checking that indeed, most of these towns on the list are the ones that also happen to have the largest amount of Muslims in their population. Here's the list. These are all the acid attack, the towns that had a lot of acid attacks. And these are the towns that have large Muslim populations. And it mostly connects, like a lot of them have both. Although some of the towns with acid attacks didn't have a lot of Muslims. I found out later that some of those towns, it's because when the statistics were done in 2011, the population was lower, but it had since gone up. Oddly enough, there were only 3 Muslim sort of enclaves that didn't have any acid attacks. But there was a third factor that I noticed. If you look at the list of the poorest towns in London, well, the poorest boroughs in London, they were all on the list of boroughs that had had acid attacks. Although not all of them were on the list as being areas with a lot of Muslims, such as Hackney, Islington, and Camden, although maybe things have changed. But anyway you cut it, there's a connection with areas with a lot of Muslim immigrants. But there's also a connection with poverty. I mean, if you think about it, usually areas that have a lot of street gang activity are poor areas. Like the poorer, the more gang activity. There are only a few cases where you'll get the names. And one of them, it was a woman's ex-lover. He was like 80 years old. And he was angry that she'd left him. He was an old Muslim. He had hired 2 Brits to go and throw acid on her. This was like an old dude, but he was a Muslim. That one was in the media. That was in Birmingham. Then there was another one where a couple of guys threw acid on a woman not that long ago. And they were British guys, but at least one of them was a Muslim convert. Sometimes not Muslims or converts to Islam, but just people pretending to be Muslims. This is a really twisted story. 2 arrested over acid attack that left Victoria's Secret shop worker scarred. The victim's name was Naomi Oni. I don't have the name of the perpetrator. Kanye. Her last name was Kanye. This woman called whatever Kanye got angry at Naomi Oni because Naomi had called her ugly. So she dressed up in a niqab and stalked her and threw acid on her. She pretended to be a Muslim. There are acid attacks all over the world, not just in Muslim countries. Also India, they're Hindus. Colombia, Vietnam was another one. I think Cambodia was one of them too. A few Asian countries. China was on the list. And UK is one of the countries on the list that have the most acid attacks in the world. There's some weird history in England. The first sulfuric acid was actually manufactured in England and then in Scotland. And during the Victorian age, Victorian Brits were throwing acid at each other. It was a huge problem. And they took really draconian measures to try to stop it. Sometimes they would hang them, sometimes they'd cut off their limbs. It was an ongoing problem. Graham Greene wrote a book in 1938 called Brighton Rock, which was made into a film in 1947, which featured a character carrying a bottle of sulfuric acid. Apparently this has been going on for some time, with or without the Muslims. So the thing is, okay, why are they using the acid? Well, if you may know that Britain recently banned guns a few years ago, and it's gotten harder to get other kinds of weapons. But that doesn't mean that crime's going to go away or people are going to stop hurting each other. So when one type of weapon isn't available, they'll turn to another kind. And these acids are easily available. So the question is, well, why don't they just ban it? Not so easy, because it's in things like battery acid. And it's used in a number of processes that, you know, some people need access to these chemicals for their work. I'm not a fan of having a nanny state. Usually when I see people banning things, I'm like, ugh, nanny, stop banning. In this case, though, I think they may really need to tighten regulations so that not everyone can just get access to this stuff. But, you know, if they don't get access to sulfuric acid, they might just use some other corrosive stuff. I mean, it's in car batteries. If somebody really wants it, they just open up a battery, get out the acid. They can still do that. Or it might just go underground. There might be a whole black market for acid. I'm very sad to see this happening. This is a really horrible injury to inflict on someone. And I'm not sure what the solution is. I don't want to blame the Muslims, although I do see that there seems to be definitely a connection to that. I don't know why the media is kind of trying to hide that. Maybe, you know, in their country they do this so that it's like a cultural thing. They bring that over here. Maybe it's just because they're all poor. I don't know. Anyway, I gotta go. My mom's here. Let me know what you think. Thanks for listening to me. Thanks for giving me a thumbs up. I'll see you next time.